Hello, everyone. Welcome. I hope your day is going wonderful. Welcome to today's lecture. I'm Lady TrenettWilson, and I am excited to talk about this subject. About the subject of the terms that have been used throughout history to refer to Black people. The reason we're having this discussion and this lecture is because a young lady named Tyla, she's a South African singer. She just released an album that didn't do too well. But prior to the album coming out, she had made some reference to herself being called colored. Now, in the Black community, referring to yourself as colored is not a good thing. And we'll talk about why that is. And I don't think her record company or maybe the people around her did the research that they needed to understand what Black people in America felt about the term. Now, in South Africa, according to Tyla, the name colored is used to recognize, it's an actual recognized identity, and it describes multiracial ethnic groups. So that's how they used colored in South Africa. And that's another thing, as we are beginning to mesh as people across the globe, as Black people, we're learning that Black Americans are different than African people, different than people from the Caribbean. So, Black people from the Caribbean. So, we're all different. So, to throw us all in one pot and say we're all Black, we found out during this incident with Tyler that everybody doesn't refer to themselves as Black. Some refer to themselves as colored. Now, here in America, that's a no go. We do not call ourselves colored. And let's go through a little bit of the history about why that is. Now, the term colored became a standard American description in about the early 19th century. It originated from a Spanish term, and it was mujeres de color, or colored women. And it started back in the 18th century, and it meant mixed race women. Now, in the post Civil War era, emancipated slaves in the U.S. initially adopted the word colored as a sense of pride. Many Black led organizations even used the name colored in their title. The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, that was founded in 1909. So this was a term that Black people really was rocking with. If you said we're colored, we was really proud back in the 1900s. However, the term was also used very negatively during the Jim Crow era to distinguish between white only and things that Black people could use, and they put colored only on it. So if she had just done a little bit of research, she would have seen colored was really tied to segregation, and we did not want to use by that. And so by 1960s, Black people did not refer to themselves as colored because, of course, it was derogatory. Now, before colored, W.D. Du Bois, after colored, between the 19th and the 20th century, W.E. Du Bois was on the scene. And click down below to learn a little bit more about him and the whole talented 10th movement. But when he came on the scene, they felt like the word Negro was better. So it's also another Spanish term, coming from the word black, negro, so Negro. So from the late 19th century into the mid 20th century, Negro replaced the word color. And it was the preferred term. Even W. Du Bois called himself a Negro in 1928. And so he thought it was a much better, logical use of us to kind of define who Black people were better than African or colored or any hyphenated term. This is really bad. It just shows how Black people really went through a lot to define who they were in this world and what term to use for them. Now, in the 1930s, the New York Times began capitalizing the N for Negro as a kind of like sign of, respect. But the term eventually took on a negative connotation due to its association with slavery and segregation, and it was too close to the word that we all dislike. And Malcolm X lit him up during that time to let him know, I'm not going to be called no Negro. So that happened. So the Black Power movement in the 1960s, as you well know, I'm Black and I'm proud, say it loud, that really became the term to be used, black, for younger generations. And some people say, I'm not black, I'm brown. So why do you call me black? So this is the discussion that still continues in this community. Do we call each other black? Are we African Americans? And that was the term that took over from the 1980s on. And that's what we use for the most part now. And if you look on a census or a piece of paper that you have to fill out for your driver's license, sometimes they'll have black, but some they'll say African American on there. So that's where we are now. It was really adopted around 1988, the term African American, by Jesse Jackson. And he felt it emphasized its cultural heritage. So, what can we say about that? Jackson argued the term possessed cultural integrity by connecting Black people to the U.S. and historical and geographical land base, similar to how other ethnic groups did it, like Germans and Americans, all of that. So today, both Black and African American are widely accepted. Polling data, in fact, from Gallup in 2021 indicated that neither term is explicitly preferred by Black people. You can call them African American or Black. So, how do you refer to yourself? Which one do you prefer? I think the term that has fallen out of favor amongst Black, though, people, period, is the term people of color or colored, period. Because even though it was a sense of pride back in the 18th century, people of, colored people, and again, even in the Caribbean, colored people were of mixed race were called colored. So that term for some Black people may be endearing, but for us, colored, it won't work anymore. And people of color in particular, because that lumps everybody in. So you could be talking about a person of color could consider themselves a Hispanic or Latino, Asian, Native American. They all call themselves people of color. When Black people use the term people of color or colored, we're thinking of Black people only and the experience that foundationally Black Americans dealt with. They're also called FBAs or ADOS. So these people who were brought here in slavery, they don't like the term colored because they were subjugated. But if you look over, like in Africa, again, South Africa, they like the word colored because they weren't subjugated like we were. They only sold us. So Black people, again, have a lot of healing to do within our own race, a lot of hard conversations that have to take place as to what we did to each other and even still doing to each other. And I think this conversation needed to be had. So if you're with a record label and you're in South Africa and you want to come to America, it's good to understand the history of these terms so that you won't get caught up. So I hope that you learned a lot. Y'all, thank you all for joining me. Is this a big deal for you? Don't call me colored. That's one thing I will say. African American, you call me Black. But I'm Black and I'm proud. I am just proud to be a part of a culture who fight so much, for our respect. And we'll stand up and say, listen, no, no, no. This is how you refer to me. So I really have respect for everyone who's standing up and clarifying this and bringing this discord to the front of the stage, up front of the church, to discuss. So I want to thank you all for joining me for today's lecture. I am Lady Trinette, and of course, as you know, my lectures are always for educational, entertainment purposes only, and the Fair Act to Use is in effect. Now, if you want to continue to learn, I discussed some people here. Definitely look down below, click down below so you can continue to learn. And I want to thank you for spending some of your day with me. Now, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you on another great episode of Royal Black and Delete. Have a great one.